Joining me now, Michael McFaul, the former U.S. ambassador to Russia and NBC News International Affairs analyst, and Peter Baker, the chief White House correspondent for the New York Times, former Moscow bureau chief for the Washington Post and NBC News political analyst. Peter, I want to start with you because it's your colleagues in the New York Times that reported this idea that a high-ranking general inside the Russian military leadership, very friendly with Prigozhin, may have been helping on the inside Sorokin. What can you tell us about him?
Well, that's exactly right. And that's, of course, what Vladimir Putin is most afraid of. Not just that Prigozhin was a threat to him, but that it represented something larger. Clearly, the theory of the case, as Prigozhin's troops were moving toward Moscow, was that they would pick up support from the regular military. Because, of course, his 25,000 troops, if that's the right number, were not going to be able to overwhelm the entirety of the Russian armed forces. The idea is, as we've seen through Russian history, that regular troops would join in. That didn't actually happen in any large numbers. But this report now by my colleagues suggests why he might have thought it would, right? That he had perhaps connections with top generals about his goals and what he might be doing. Now, there's a report by the Moscow Times, a very well-respected English language paper, that he may, in fact, now be in trouble. So General Sorokin, in fact, he may be arrested. That hasn't been confirmed yet. But, of course, you can imagine what would happen if you were Vladimir Putin and you learned that one of your generals, if not many of your generals, knew what was about to happen.
Look, we have, I'm glad you pointed out that article. I was about to point it out with you, Mike McFaul, but also to say, hey, look, none of us have confirmed it. We haven't. Obviously, the New York Times hasn't. But, Mike, is this a show of force, or is this rooting out somebody who may have truly been a part of this?
Well, Chuck, we don't know. Let's keep saying that. And the Moscow Times have reported it. Lots of bloggers close to following this war have reported it, that Sorokin was arrested. They're saying he was arrested on Sunday, June 25th, excuse me. So we'll have to wait and see. But we do know a few facts. Sorokin was close to Prigozhin. That is well known. He was kind of his handler. He was put in charge of the forces in Ukraine when it wasn't going well. And the bloggers close to the military, the kind of pro-nationalistic groups, they all applauded this. They said, okay, finally we have a fighter here. And then mysteriously, he was demoted and Gerasimov was put in charge, and they were all upset about that. Those are things we know. Number two, Sorokin gave a, hostage tape. I can't think of a better word. When the rebellion was going on, he put out a video message and he says, Wagner soldiers, Wagner fighters, put your weapons down. I watched that several times. He sounded like he was drunk to me, Chuck. I'm just speculating. He did not look like he was happy to be giving that message. And another guy did too, General Alexeyev, a similar kind of message. And then just hours later, Alexeyev showed up in Rostov chatting with Prigozhin. So there's a lot we don't know here, but I would not be surprised if he was arrested. But it's also, if that's true, very dangerous for Vladimir Putin, because this guy is popular not just with the Wagner fighters, but with Russian soldiers as well.
Peter Baker, are you surprised that Putin seems to have this distant of a relationship with his military leaders? I mean, the idea that somebody that high up could be doing this without his knowledge, I mean, I take it this is not a guy that's in there looking at the maps all the time.
Yeah, I mean, look, Vladimir Putin is a creature of the security services more than he has been of the military, right? He didn't serve in the military, he served in the KGB. So his power base has always been with the modern day versions of that agency, the FSB, the SVR, GRU. He has not been, he's catered obviously to the military over the years, but he's not of them. And I think that that suggests that there is a weakness there, at least in the upper ranks. Now, remember, why would the upper ranks be upset? For a lot of the reasons the ambassador just talked about? The war has been going badly. Their people have been the ones who are getting, slaughtered on the battlefield. They feel like they have not gotten the support they need. The leadership in Moscow, that's Prigozhin's indictment, has been incompetent. And so, it wouldn't necessarily be surprising that the professional military would sour on this war, given how badly it's gone, given that they have been led, in effect, to such a disastrous outcome.
Mike McFaul, how advantageous is it to us publicly to let the world know how much we knew about this, and how much of this is too much?
It's a good question, Chuck. I don't have a great answer. I would say two things. I'm always surprised when the intelligence folks tell us about something that happened and then they tell us, well, we knew about this all along. That's an interesting
well, they always
dynamic.
say that, right? Sorry.
I know, but I think it's actually useful, but not too far. It's useful to, at least when I look at it, if the CIA knew about this, weeks ago, surely the Russian FSB, the Russian intelligence, knew about it, and it suggests that they knew about it and they didn't do anything about that. That is another. There are many cuts here at Putin's authority as being really in charge. That just adds to another one. I think quietly, not publicly, we use that information and we use this whole fiasco to talk to people like Xi Jinping and Modi and a bunch of the fence sitters around the world to say, hey, you put your bets on this guy. You said you think he's a strong leader. He's not a strong leader. Things are getting out of control. Why are they getting out of control? Because Putin invaded Ukraine. I think that's really important for people to understand. None of this would be happening if he didn't invade Ukraine. And the longer that war goes on, my prediction is there'll be more episodes like this. So if you're Xi Jinping and all you care about is stability in Russia, and maybe you care about your buddy Putin staying in power, maybe it's time to put a little more pressure on him to say, time to wrap this up so you can get your own house in order.
Peter, do you have any indication that U.S. diplomats are sending that message?
Well, the message U.S. diplomats have sent in the last few days is it wasn't us. This is not some sort of a CIA-provoked, uprising. We had nothing to do with it, because that's usually, the first page of the Kremlin playbook, to blame any domestic troubles on the United States and the West, to say it's all about them, not about us. They haven't done that. I don't know that we've had other kind of communications. I haven't heard of that at this point. Mike might know better, but I think the point is to whatever information that is being put out by the American side is probably being put out selectively in order to undermine the credibility of the regime, for the point that Ambassador McFaul was talking about with their allies, or at least the neutral states like India and Brazil and so forth. But we don't know a lot about what's going on, and it's worth remembering that there are intrigues within intrigues here. Right. And if you're Vladimir Putin, I think the most worrisome thing is you have to look around the room and not be entirely sure who's on your side, who's not.
Yeah, that's amazing. Mike McFaul, the question that I certainly hear the most from people that ask me what I know, and I say, well, I always ask Mike, which is, how is Prigozhin still alive, and do you expect him to survive?
Again, great question. Don't have a great answer, so I'm going to speculate like we all are doing. Thank you, Peter, for reminding us what we don't know. I would say two things. Chuck, if he kills him now, he makes a martyr out of him at a time when all those Wagner mercenaries are still armed. Remember, Putin went on television in this dramatic speech pleading with these guys to join his side. The people that were traitors just a few days ago, he called heroes, and he's trying to split them from the commanders, from Prigozhin and his commanders. So that suggests to me he's still got a Wagner problem. He doesn't want to, in any way inflame them. I suspect if he finally gets that under control, he gets them to a base in Belarus, or they might join some special forces. By the way, he gave another concession in that speech, really important, not getting enough attention. He didn't say you have to join the army, which was the old offer. Right. He said you can join the army or other forces. And that, to me, was a giant concession. You don't have to go fight with Gerasimov, the guy you hate. You can go be part of some special military operations, other people. But once he gets that under control, if I were Prigozhin, then I would be very fearful.
Fascinating. Putin's got to micromanage in so many different ways. That's when you know you are losing your grip. You're not sure which capos to trust. Mike McFaul, former ambassador to Russia. Peter Baker, former Moscow bureau chief, New York Times chief political analyst these days. Thank you both.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.